Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cohn Zone. I'm Grant Cohn. That's my dad, the legendary Lowell Cohn. And season's about to start. We've been talking for the last 8 months or something, big picture, all very important topics. Now it's time to focus on the Detroit Lions. I'm excited. How you doing, Dad?
Well, one thing before that,
Oh, that's
Shana
true.
Tova.
Shana
Today
Tova.
is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, a day of joy. So this is our special Rosh Hashanah edition. I probably shouldn't even be doing this, but here we are.
Here we
And
are.
yes, we've been for the last few months talking about the big picture. That's over with. As I've told Iggy a million times, there are 17 games now. Each game is its own universe. So we're not looking anywhere past Detroit right now. And by the way, neither are the Niners.
Mm-mm.
So we're only going to be talking about that game, nothing else. And what we're going to do at the beginning of this broadcast today, because Iggy is really an expert, I'm going to ask him some questions, and we'll see what he answers.
Okay.
One, what is the biggest task facing the 49ers in Detroit on Sunday?
This is a really interesting question because your instinct is to say something uh complex. Like it's gonna be key how they switch the quarterbacks or what kind of runs they use or the coverages or maybe the blitzes. Oh, that's big picture stuff, scheme stuff, which players they use. Really, the stuff we've been talking about the last few months, none of it matters. All that matters, the only task facing the Niners in Detroit is win the freaking game.
Win the freaking game. It comes down to that. And that it's a very simple answer. Every coach on every team understands that. You win or lose. That's it. How you do it is fine. What we talked about for the last few months, the quarterbacks, the cornerbacks, are footnotes.
Yeah.
The issue is win the freaking game. There is no other issue beyond that. And one time, when he was still alive, Joe Morgan, and he played for the San Francisco Giants, I said something about the Giants lost, but it was a good loss. Oh, he got so pissed. He said, Lowell, there is no such thing as a good loss. Every loss is bad. It's bad to lose. It's a very simple morality. Winning is good, losing is bad. So, yes, their task is simple. Win the game however you do it.
Right. And there will be.
And
Sorry.
one more thing. There's no such thing as an ugly win.
Right.
You win. It's beautiful, no matter how you do it.
That's true. And usually week one wins are ugly because teams don't have their offenses in sync yet. So the things that could win a game could be like a fumble on special teams or something like that. Great. You won the game. You didn't lose it. Also, there's a lot of footnotes week one that happened in the first quarter. Oh, who started the game? And that's going to be a lot of people cheering and booing and settling bets. You and we got bets to settle in. It's going to be a lot of bets to settle in the first quarter. But then all that stuff is really history, and it's about who wins and loses. And the Niners better freaking not lose to Detroit. High stakes, right? In the sense that you can't lose this game.
All the other stuff are sidebars.
Yes.
The issue is, did they win?
They're not even sidebars. They're like stuff you blog in the first quarter, but probably wouldn't even make the newspaper.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So you did good. You
yes.
did good on that.
Yes.
Okay. Now I want you to do the prediction. Who will win and why? And give me a score.
Okay. I'm going to say the Niners are going to win by 2 touchdowns, 27-13. They should kick butt in this game. And let's start with, the Lions have the worst defense in the league last year. 32. They had the worst pass defense in the league last year. They have one good pass rusher who could go up against McGlinchey and have given problems. But other than that, they're kind of like a decent run defense and nothing more. They don't have great. They have one good one good corner, one good edge rusher, a decent run defense, and a really bad defense overall. And then on offense, they have Jared Goff, who hasn't played well against the Niners in a while. And now he's on a new team. His number one receiver is a tight end. The Niners do a really good job of covering tight ends. They got Warner, Ward, Tart. They're more vulnerable against a team with a lot of good wide receivers, but this team doesn't have that. And they have a good center and a good left tackle, but their right tackle is a rookie who didn't play last year, opted out, played left tackle the year before that, and was just he was awful in the preseason. So the Niners are probably going to be able to tee off, and I don't see how. The only way the Lions could score more than 13 points in this game as if they ran for like 200 yards. And I don't think they're going to do that against Fred Warner in this defense. I think they're pretty much going to be held in check the whole game and score about 10, 13 points.
And Iggy, the right tackle, did he play at Oregon?
Yes.
And
Top 10 pick.
He hasn't played in a year.
Right.
He'll be like a turnstile. They'll
Yes.
go through him. And I agree with you, by the way. And when they go through him, they will hit Jared Goff. And then, he gets sort of mentally paralyzed.
Oh, absolutely. They're not going to have success throwing the ball. They're going to have to run the ball. And I think the Niners are going to be much better at running the ball in this game than the Lions will be.
So give a final score.
Niners 27, Lions 13. It's going to be an easy game, I would think. The Niners should be able to put this in cruise control by halftime.
Wow.
I would think.
Okay.
If they do everything right.
And you would assume, Iggy, in this game, the Niners will just run the hell out of the ball, right?
I would think they would just run the hell out of the ball because they're built that way. I mean, they spent a second-round pick on a guard. He's not starting, but that's their identity. They spent a third-round pick on a running back. They spent a sixth-round pick on a running back. They want to run the ball. Their best season in 2019 was the year they ran the ball the most. And last year, they weren't particularly great at running. They were kind of mediocre. All their strengths are running the ball. All their weaknesses are throwing. It's not just Jimmy. It's the offensive line and pass protection. It's the receivers dropping the freaking ball. So, they should. Their goal should be to run at least 30 times in this game. They should win if they get to 30 rushes.
And the thing is, my impression is when you run and you continually have success, it crushes the morale of the other team.
It does that. And I feel like it's also like kind of playing defense while playing offense. You're using the clock. You're keeping your defense fresh on the bench. You're keeping the game in control on your terms. And also, you're way less likely to turn the ball over when you run it. When you pass it, guy could miss a block. The quarterback could miss a read. He could throw, it could slip out of his hand. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could turn the ball over. And the Niners do turn the ball over when they throw. It just seems like it's just a much more, it's their winning formula. It's the 49. If you had Patrick Mahomes, bombs away, but they don't. It's the Niners winning formula to run it.
Right. More bad things can happen on a pass play than a run play.
Yep. Especially on the 49ers. I mean, nothing against Mike McGlinchey. I just don't trust him doing that kind of stuff. I trust him as a run blocker, but as soon as it's like time to drop back and throw, he's vulnerable, and teams are going to put their best pass rusher across from him. Jimmy Garoppolo, if he doesn't get the ball out in 2 seconds, bad things happen. He's a one-read guy. Yeah, I mean, this team needs to run the ball really well, and I think they can. I think they're basically set up to lead the league in rushing this year. Them and the Ravens.
Iggy, would you be shocked out of your shoes if the Niners lose this game?
No. I mean, they should win. The Lions are one of the worst teams in the league, but I wouldn't be shocked. I've seen weird things, and I know that Kyle Shanahan, historically, his offenses aren't that good week one, which is weird because usually the offensive gurus of the league have their offenses ready to go week one. Not him. Last year, they scored 20 points and lost. The year before, they scored 17 points and won because they scored 14 points on defense with pick sixes. The year before, they scored 16 points and lost. The year before, they scored 3 points and lost. I think the Niners can lose this game if Kyle Shanahan comes into it and says, well, the Lions have a better run defense and pass defense. We got to throw. We got to put this game in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. If he does that, they could lose because Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a good training camp. He also starts slowly. His quarterback rating in week one with the Niners, 3 games, 75. So I think you just got to take the game out of his hands. Run the ball as much as possible. And it should be pretty easy to win that way against the Lions. But if Kyle gets cute and says, well, we have to win this way. I want to win with Jimmy. They could. I'm not saying Jimmy will give it away, but he could. And I think this is a game that really you'd have to like invent ways to lose. And that would be one of them.
So what you're saying is the Niners are going to win this game, but if they were to lose it, that's the key way to lose it, to pass instead of run.
To put the game in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. I know he's won games on he's put the Niners on his shoulders in the past, but this isn't the time. Not week one. He's not in any type of a streak. He's coming off a pretty bad offseason. just let him slowly gain confidence or whatever he's going to do during the year and take the game out of his hands.
I want to say another way of what you're saying. You're saying a win or loss is up to Kyle Shanahan.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
You're saying that this is a cinch win unless he gets a crazy idea.
It's a freaking layup unless he wants to like do a windmill dunk behind the back 360 at the very end. Like, oh, don't do that. Just put it in, lay it in right off the glass. It's so easy. It's right there for you. The Lions aren't even trying, basically. I mean, they're trying, but they're the worst team, and they have a new coach. There's only so much they can do. They're biting kneecaps.
Well, that's very interesting. And, it's something we've said in the past, and I'd like to emphasize, as opposed to other sports, i.e. baseball, the coach is much more important than the baseball manager. It's really a coach-oriented game, football, as opposed to baseball, which is more of a player-oriented game. Would you agree?
Absolutely, no question about it. I think that's one of the things I like so much about football is how much the coaches have to do and how much preparation they have to do. But it seems to me that really, like, if coming back to Kyle, how he can win this game. I mean, even if Trey Lance can't throw, he can run. And if the goal should be to run more than they pass in this game. Whatever number of passes they end up with, they should have one more run or more. That's a winning formula. And I think Trey Lance could be good for 8 of those runs himself. Easy. Even if he can't throw, let him hand off and run. Get to 30 runs. Yeah.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
We used to play around like this when you were a kid. First offensive play of the game, you think
better be a freaking run. Are you kidding me? Better be a freaking run. Yeah.
Like, in other words, if all of a sudden it's some fancy dancy stuff
bad sign.
In the pocket.
Bad sign.
Like, no, don't do it.
Bad sign. If the first play is some kind of fancy pass, bad sign. Come on, Kyle. This is a layup. Just run the ball and establish this attack that could be the best in the league. This is what I've seen it in practice. It's really nice. That's the identity of the team. Don't get cute. Don't ever think this one. Like you did in the Super Bowl. I went back and looked. 20 runs in that game, Dad. 33 something passes, 20 runs. Wow. They averaged 6.9 yards per carry with their running backs, and they just stopped running.
And there was no reason to stop.
There was no reason to stop.
They had the lead.
And they're a run. They're supposed to be a run first team, right? That's their identity. And all of a sudden, when it's pressure time, Kyle Shanahan I don't know what he does. Just reverts to the worst part of his playbook. There's no pressure in this game. It's week 1. The only pressure is don't embarrass yourself by losing to the Lions. I think he should be. And he watches. He's a big fan of the show. Run the ball.
I told you what Bill Walsh once told me. When he had a lead in the fourth quarter, he was running. I was so stupid. I said, Bill, why do you run so much in the fourth quarter? He goes, Lowell, that's football.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, that's grammar. That's football. And we need to remind Kyle that someone who was brighter than he is just ran the goddamn ball.
That's right. And what Kyle will do is he'll say, well, the guys were open. Well, your offensive line can't block in pass protection. Your quarterback's a one-read guy who makes bad decisions. And you know this. This is how you set up your team. So don't tell me guys were open. Stick to your strengths and your identity.
Okay. Now, while we're on Kyle.
Real quick, hold on. JT says Grant is the future of Niners reporting. Thank you. And Jeffrey says, hey, Grant, love the father and son interview. Go Niners. Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me one good thing Kyle Shanahan did this offseason.
Okay. I can do that. I think he handled training camp beautifully, if not perfectly. Maybe not in terms of the quarterbacks, but in terms of the rest of the team. He came off a disastrous minicamp. Well, he never got to minicamp. OTAs, where people got season-ending injuries. The backup left tackle, the backup free safety, Tavarius Moore, Justin School out for the year or for a very long time. And Kyle had to do something about it. And he went way softer in training camp. It was a much less vigorous training camp, and there weren't any season-ending injuries. They're basically, with the exception of one guy we're going to talk about in a minute, they have all their starters healthy for week 1. So that's a good thing. They needed to make a change, and they made a change, and it worked. So he made some good decisions.
If I had to answer that question, I would have answered exactly the same way you did. That he last year, not only earlier in OTAs, but last year, what we know was a disaster with injuries. He's been extremely shrewd, and really, as praise to him, it shows he can learn.
Right. If you remember last year, week 1 against Arizona. Center was their third string center, Hronis Grasu. They were down Weston Richburg and Ben Garland. Debo didn't play. Ayuk didn't play. They kind of came into that game. They limped into that game.
Yeah.
And they really took themselves out and they lost. They haven't, at least they're not limping into the season for a change. That's great. They're pretty much full strength. That's a great thing for a team that has injury issues.
So we want to praise Kyle for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what head coaches have to do. They have to identify a problem, take responsibility for it, make some type of adjustment, and go for it. And it worked. He did all those things right. Good for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next question is, name one thing he didn't do so good coming into the season?
I want to say preseason, the way he handled preseason, especially with the quarterbacks. I mean, the way I look at what he did, tell me if you see it differently, is he didn't have a quarterback competition, but he did. He didn't want to call it a quarterback competition, but it was one. Like you said, Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback and nothing has changed and Trey Lance isn't ready. But Jimmy Garoppolo had to play in all those preseason games while a lot of starters didn't. And it seemed like he was competing for the job and had to prove something. The consequence of that is that Trey Lance had to get most of his playing time in camp and especially in preseason with the backups, which led to him getting hurt. He got his finger broken because the left guard, who's now on the practice squad, missed a block. So if it wasn't a quarterback competition, then Jimmy didn't need to be playing in the preseason. There was nothing for him to prove. Derek Carr didn't play in the preseason. You would have just protected him because he's your starter. And then to protect Trey Lance and get him reps, you would have played him with the starters. There's no competition. Play him with the starters. Playing him with the backups was dangerous, and it was predictable what would happen. We've talked about it. Those offensive linemen were awful.
And also because he played with the backups, he didn't learn as much.
Exactly. He was basically learning how to get hit.
He was learning how to get hit. He was learning how to break his finger.
So if it was a real quarterback competition, they should have split time with the starters, and it should have been fair. If it's not a quarterback competition, get Jimmy off the field and get Trey as many reps with the starters as possible so he can learn and not just learn how to play quarterback and not just learn how to get hit. But they kind of rode the fence. It's not a quarterback competition, but Jimmy still has to play because we're not that confident in him either. And all that Kyle really accomplished with this quarterback competition in this preseason was he found 2 quarterbacks he doesn't trust.
Right, and he could have trusted Trey more had he given him better, shrewder opportunities. And I want to say something else, Iggy. We praised Kyle for identifying a problem and being definitive and decisive with injuries. He was wishy-washy with the quarterbacks. The exact opposite.
Yeah, he didn't make a decision either way. Like, is it a competition or is it not? Is he going to start? Is he going to play or is he not? I don't know. Like, he wanted to keep this mystery going. Who are you trying to fool? The media? The Lions? I mean, the Lions are going to lose one way or another. You're going to beat the Lions as long as you run the ball 30 times. Fooling the media, what are we? We're just covering this. We're all profiting from your indecision because people are tuning in and want to know what's going to happen. So I don't understand what he accomplished by kind of, riding the fence here. I don't get it.
If I had to answer this question, Iggy, first of all, I agree with everything you said. I would add one thing. Because he and his quarterback coach didn't teach Trey Lance the way they should have. They did not teach him how to throw softer balls.
Yeah.
That's very important. I think it's a fair thing to say his passes are hard to catch.
He can't play, and he can't be a full-time player until he takes some velocity off those short throws. That's a deal breaker.
It's a deal breaker.
It's a deal breaker.
And they had months to work on that with him. They played him a lot in the preseason. And, there were these things Bill used, I think he called it Texas, these little routes, they come out of the backfield and they were like 5-yard passes. And the whole idea was put some touch, take speed off, like Joe was beautiful at that. Put some touch. The quarterback's coach should have been working every day with Trey Lance on these short passes to get the feel of softness, of grace, of touch, and they blew that opportunity. He is where he was at the beginning of training camp.
And the thing about it is, to me, it's a new issue. It didn't exist in college. He completed 65% of his throws in college, and he was very accurate on the short stuff. It wasn't an issue in camp. He completed 69% of his throws in camp. And I mean, there were some drops, but still he completed more passes, a higher percentage of his passes than Jimmy Garoppolo. It happened in preseason. He was playing with the backups. He was getting hit. He was speeding himself up and playing with a bunch of people who couldn't block and people who couldn't catch. If he had been, if you said, look, Jimmy, you're our starter. We don't want to see you in preseason. We want to keep you healthy. Trey, go out there and play as much as you can with the starters. I think he probably would have gotten a rhythm, settled down, and taken enough off of the short throws. Like, for example, in the Charger game, he got to play through the first half, and he got in a rhythm, completed about 7 of 9 throws at the end, and had that beautiful touchdown pass from the pocket where he looked left, came back to the right, and hit Travis Benjamin. He can do it. He can do it. I just think this is one of those things like he's only going to fix by getting playing time. Like, this is the issue of him adjusting to the speed of the NFL. He didn't play last year. He comes from 1AA football. He needs to be on the field. He's not going to – this isn't going to get better with him on the bench watching Jimmy like, okay, this is how to throw softer. You got to go out there and do it. And, like, just – I think – didn't he look like a guy who had a ton of adrenaline going through him? Like, I got to impress Kyle. I got to show everyone I'm great. Like, just calm down. It's a 3-hour game, dude. It's a 3-hour game. The adrenaline wears off. That's all I saw.
So I think in a way what you're saying is, without meaning to, the Niners were teaching him the wrong things.
Yes.
Not to be patient,
yes.
to be frantic, and to throw too hard. And they were reinforcing that because they weren't protecting him.
Yeah, again, this is not an issue that was there in camp or in college. This is new, and I think it's, as you said, it's a symptom of the structure, the way they structured preseason for him. Which is wrong.
So he was learning all the wrong things.
Oh, they developed bad habits with him. And now they got to get rid of those things. Bad habits. Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is fascinating. And again, it comes back to Kyle. He's got a hell of a system, Dad. Love that system. But in terms of being a head coach, work in progress. Good stuff with training camp. This was something you could have done a lot better.
And should have been aware of.
Should have been aware of. Yep, absolutely. I don't understand what he was trying to – basically, the problem started when he decided at the beginning of camp that Trey Lance wasn't going to even be allowed to compete because Kyle decided that he wasn't ready. Well, 3 weeks in, Jimmy's throwing a pick a day and Kyle has to pivot. And now it's like, maybe you should have just let it play out from the beginning. Yeah. But we'll see what happens. Now he's got a broken finger. The fact that he got his finger broken in preseason is really, really bad. That would be the worst thing that Kyle Shanahan did leading up to week 1. Finger broken, playing behind the second string offensive line. That's an all-timer, Dad. Remember when I would do things really bad in high school and you would call it an all-timer? That's an all-timer.
I would call it an all-timer.
Yeah, you call it an all-timer. Like, he said, you got to keep him in. He can't be running the zone read. It's just preseason. Like, okay, well, you got his finger broken in preseason, man. That shouldn't have happened. Jimmy's healthy. I'm just saying. 2 for the money says, do you really think Kyle is trying to put Trey Lance in a Mac Jones offense? Just in preseason, no. I know that there's a whole Trey Lance offense that they're hiding. I don't know what Kyle was trying to do. He's being very sneaky here. But the sneakiness has led him to a broken finger and no quarterbacks he trusts. But he's sneaky.
One thing that's very hard for Detroit and for every other team the Niners play, they have to have 2 different packages on defense. They have to have the Jimmy package and the Trey Lance package. So that's one clever thing that Kyle did.
Yes.
Usually you have one, you know what I mean, one whole idea. You have to have 2 ideas because the minute they bring in Trey Lance, it's a different offense. So in that regard, the Niners really do have an advantage if the quarterbacks can take advantage of it.
Yeah, because right now, Jimmy and Trey Lance do like opposite things. Right. Jimmy does nothing but short passes over the middle. Trey Lance does everything but that. You can't trust him with the short passes over the middle. So if you have to prepare for both of them, you technically have to prepare for a full offense, everything. But if it's one or the other, it's like, okay, well, if it's Jimmy, I don't have to worry about quarterback running, quarterback throwing deep, quarterback throwing outside the numbers. With Trey, it's like, I don't have to worry about the quarterback throwing any quick short passes whatsoever. Everything's going to be long. Or him running. It's okay. Play them both.
Iggy, can Jimmy throw the deep pass past the defense?
I mean, he could. It's not going to look pretty. It'll flutter and die, and it's not going to go where he wants it to go. But it's not his strength. They'll
Okay.
dare him to do that. Defenses would love him to try.
How about Trey Lance? Can he do that?
Yes, he can definitely do that. Yes, absolutely. What he
So,
needs to do is like not throw the 5-yard pass 500 miles an hour.
but
He
he
needs to
can
stop.
throw the deep pass over the back of the defense.
Cannon. Absolutely. Yes. It's a stronger arm than Kaepernick. Absolute cannon. Quick release, better mechanics. I think he's going to be a good pocket passer, Dad. I didn't see this in camp. Him just hitting the receivers as hard as he could in the face with the ball. He was basically pretty good. So I don't know. I think he was a little overamped trying to impress a coach who's a little negative, a little prone to not being impressed. Q-Max says he wanted to get Jimmy Garoppolo the MVP for the Super Bowl. Oh, that's why he lost the Super Bowl, because he was trying to get Jimmy Garoppolo the MVP. What do you think?
Well, I don't actually agree with that, but if that's what Kyle was doing, remember how we began this broadcast: win the freaking game. There is no other issue. You don't want to get an MVP. You want to win the freaking game.
Yeah. Pat says, Grant, are there beat writers who give you the cold shoulder and don't talk to you? If so, why? Also, same question for Lowell. I get along with the beat writers. I've been with them for 10 years. I get along really well with Matt Mayoko, known Matt Barrows a long time. Nah.
Let's say that Matt Mayoko is a family friend.
Yes.
We worked at the Press Democrat together. Matt and I we're very close friends.
Yeah.
And he's known Iggy since he was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And, Iggy's been to his house. He's been to our house, all of that. And the others we're friends with.
Yeah.
Now, the issue for me is not this group of beat writers. I'm an old man. I don't, I did work with these people and I was friendly with them. And when I retired, they came to my house.
Yeah.
Cam Inman and
all of
Ken
them.
Wakami and all of that. When I first started in 1979 at the Chronicle, I had a lot of negative blowback because a lot of the sports writers felt I had not, quote unquote, paid my dues, meaning I didn't study journalism. I didn't start at some baloney newspaper and cover high schools. I had no interest in that. I always saw myself, I'm sorry, as a star. And I saw myself as having the biggest voice around.
Mm-hmm.
And I made sure that happened. And a lot of people resented it. But now we're all very good friends. In fact, we had a lunch last week at Dave Newhouse. He was a great columnist at the Oakland Tribune. At his house in Oakland, I was there. Dave Newhouse was there. Artie Spander was there. Mark Purdy was there. All retired guys, except Scotty Osler was there. And Mitch Jurasich, and Barry Tompkins, who was also not retired. And we stayed and had fun for about 4 hours in the afternoon. So I'm very close with certain people that I started out with.
Yeah. David says, what's going to cause more drama moving forward? Jimmy playing lights out or Trey putting on a disastrous showing? If Trey Lance isn't good, that's a big problem for the 49ers. He needs to be good. That's huge.
That would be a bigger issue because of what they did to get him.
Yeah.
But he could, for what we don't know. Now again, we say the Niners need to run the ball, but it could be that Trey Lance comes in and is Joe Montana,
right?
Or Jimmy refines himself and he's Steve Young. We're going to have to find out. We don't know the answers yet. The games tell you so much.
Yeah.
You learn so much, and again, every game is a separate universe.
I could be wrong, but just from watching both of these guys in training camp where there's and there's no adrenaline, it's much more relaxed. I just have a feeling when Trey Lance's finger finally heals and he's allowed to play an entire game, that maybe the first 2-3 drives will look like the preseason did, but then he'll settle down and realize that he's the best athlete on the field and that the game's not that hard, that he can get out of the pocket whenever he wants. He can make any throw, and that he's actually good enough in the pocket right now. And I think he'll look really good. Maybe I'm deluding myself. It's just, I watched him all month and I was very surprised at what happened in preseason. He was so much better in camp. I think he's going to settle down. He's too gifted not to, or I'm just wrong. But Dad,
you want to win the bet.
I don't think I'm going to win that bet. I'll tell you that right now. We got some more. I do want to win the bet though, but I'm happy to lose. 49er fan is a new member. Thank you. Jeremy Price. Jeremy says, what up, Grant? Lol, your take on Bill for the Mac Jones move. Is it too soon to praise the move? Instead of, the Patriots needed a quarterback too. Instead of trading up for Trey Lance, they just hung tight at 15 and drafted Mac Jones, who has played great in preseason.
Too early to say.
Too early to say. Yeah, that's
Too
fair.
early to say.
Yeah. Justin says Ravens are starting the season with number 3 running back. Would they part ways with an OT for Elijah Mitchell? I don't think teams trade offensive tackles for running backs. Just saying. Probably not. Parable says Kyle lost the Super Bowl because his ego said to himself, I can beat the Chiefs at their own game, and he lost the shootout. It's fun to get inside the mind of Kyle Shanahan, but it's hard.
It's hard to. Again, I've never met him, so I don't know.
How does a self-destructive person think? I don't know. Spider Niner says, you've said you haven't liked how Kyle is using Lance so far since preseason, but do you think he will use Lance like you saw in practice versus preseason? Yeah, I mean, I would imagine in games that count, they would only trust Lance to do the things he's good at. In preseason, I think he was either trying to make a point to someone that Lance isn't ready or help Lance improve on the things that are his biggest weaknesses. Either way, it led to an injury. But yeah, when it's game time, they're not going to trust Trey Lance to do stuff he's not good at, I don't think, unless they want to lose, unless they're trying to lose. 49er fan says, every hard hit is a penalty on the defense. So I feel like they penalize defensive players for offensive mistakes, said Tom Brady. Big fan of both your takes on the game. Would love your take on the statement and who said it. I don't know if you saw this, but Tom Brady went on he had a little spiel for 2 minutes saying that he doesn't like the way the NFL is being officiated now, that offensive players can be careless. Quarterbacks can throw receivers into coverage and get guys hit, and the defensive player is penalized for doing his job well. And he says that it's kind of ruining the spirit of the game. What do you think?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I see all the time what I would consider good hits, clean hits, fair hits, and all of a sudden there's a penalty on the guy who administered the hit. How can you play football?
Right.
How can you? No, I'm with Tom Brady. I think it's disgusting what they've done.
Yeah, he said it's the responsibility of the offensive players to protect themselves. But the NFL has changed it where it's now the responsibility of the defensive players to protect the offensive players. So they can do whatever they want.
Iggy, I think that's a brilliant insight. I don't know Brady. I've never met him. But you know what? I really respect that.
Yeah, and his example was like, when I was younger, I had to play against Ray Lewis. And, all my receivers were little guys like Wes Welker. And I had to know if I just threw the ball over the middle, he would knock them out of the game and we would lose. So that was my responsibility not to do that. Now you can do it. And if Ray Lewis or whoever makes the hit and it's a good one, he can get thrown out of the game. There was another example, Justin Fields, a couple of weeks ago with the Bears, didn't really see a blitz coming, didn't set the protection well. Someone just came unblocked and just decked him. Flag. So it was a huge mistake on the offense, ends up being a 15-yard gain for them.
I love it.
I'm with Brady on that one.
Yeah, and I would also add, and it makes me sound like, it was so better in the old days. All I know is they're diluting football. They're diluting it. It's a war game. It's not war, of course. It's not war, but it's a war game. You're defending a goal. And defensive players should not be afraid to hit offensive players. He hit him he didn't hit him exactly in the right place, or he didn't roll off him in time.
Right.
And I want to point out one other thing. They're doing the same thing to baseball.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're diluting baseball. It's disgusting. It bothers me that they're doing it to these two great sports. I mean,
Brady's example was Ray Lewis, but I'm sure, other quarterbacks from the 80s would have said Ronnie Lott. It was my responsibility not to get my wide receivers decapitated by Ronnie Lott, and that was the nature of the sport. Now it's Ronnie's fault.
I agree.
Yeah. Good point. Merkin Avalos says, can we stop using Jimmy took us to the Super Bowl in 19 argument already? I'm sure any other starting quarterback that year would have took us there too. It's funny how Niner fans are still arguing about that year. Sorry. Pat says, lol, is there anyone more qualified to write a Walsh biography than you? I don't think so. Really enjoyed the show.
Well, here's the thing. I wrote a book on Bill.
Yeah.
Of his first year back at Stanford, the second time. And it had many biographical elements. I was very proud of that book. Bill hated it. And we didn't talk for 2 years about that book. We eventually became quite close friends in the way he could be a friend. So I've done that. I don't want to write about Bill anymore.
Yeah.
And
It was
you
too
know
real.
what? I don't want to write about other people anymore. I had enough, 40 years writing about other people. If I'm going to write, I want to write about me.
I like that. Good answer. Matthew Sanders says, what's Kyle's quarterback end game here? If he could wave a magic wand but not get Mac, how does he choose for his quarterback situation to end? I think he chooses for Trey Lance to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I think he's in his mind it's going to take a long time.
I totally agree. And one of the reasons it's going to take a long time is Kyle is such a perfectionist.
Yes. And where Trey Lance could have success right now playing sort of backyard recess football. That's what Fangio used to call what young Russell Wilson. He could have success doing it right now. But Shanahan, I don't think he wants that. I think he's old school. Run my plays. You run as a last resort after you've gone through 3 progressions, where really he should probably just be a one read and run kind of guy until he's 25. I'm just saying, but that's not how they're going. And you see him right now. He stays in the pocket too long. Like, dude, Trey, run. It's easy. It's really easy. Run. But no, I gotta impress Kyle. I gotta play the game the way he wants me to play it. I don't know.
In the regular season, you'll see he'll run a lot. There'll be plays for him to run.
Good. Q Mock says they were up in the Super Bowl, but but started passing. Yeah. Sorry, I tweeted this morning about the Super Bowl, and Niner fans are like reliving the PTSD of it. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Yes, that really happened. I don't know what Kyle was thinking there. Guys were open. That's one hell of a bottle of wine. Oh man, it's gonna be great, Dad. It's gonna be one hell of a bottle of wine. I'm looking forward to buying that one for you. It's gonna be the best bottle I've ever bought you.
We'll have a good time.
The key is rhythm and comfort. Once Lance is in rhythm, he's been fantastic. He's still learning to trust his eyes. Kyle needs to help him get comfy. I agree. I'm with you, Keneal. Great to see you. Steven Hernandez says, Lowell, I feel like Bill Walsh was the reason Joe Cool was amazing. I am a firm believer in a coach is what makes a player, not the other way around. It's a symbiotic relationship. They need each other.
That's what I was going to say. They needed each other. And I do think there was some tension who deserved more credit.
Yes.
Between Joe and Bill. I'm telling you, I really think there was, although later in life, all of that stuff evaporates, but he was the perfect quarterback for Bill, and Bill was the perfect coach for him.
And I think it's hard for a quarterback to develop and flourish in spite of coaching. Like, you need a good coach. And as gifted as Trey Lance is, if he doesn't get the right development and coaching, fail. So I'm curious to see what he'll get, because he has all the gifts he needs, but does he have the coach? I think he does. David says, Lowell, since you knew Mike Shanahan, is there any reason you can pinpoint why he lost 2 Super Bowls before winning his first? Will Kyle have the same fate? Mike Shanahan was an offensive coordinator for the Broncos when they lost in the 80s.
He won with the Niners.
He did.
When he was offensive coordinator. He was a brilliant offensive coordinator, just like his son. I would say he lost. I may have this wrong. He lost Super Bowls until he got John Elway.
I think he lost Super Bowls with John Elway. I think the Niners beat John Elway and just eviscerated him. I wasn't alive, and I'm sure you weren't covering the Broncos. What
was Shanahan the head coach when they?
He was the offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
for
he
Dan Reeves.
The head coach.
Yeah,
it was Reeves was the head coach.
And I don't know his offensive tendencies from the 80s.
Yeah,
but he was their offensive coordinator from 85 to 87. Yeah, I wasn't alive. Don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they had the same issue.
He was a great coach. He also had Elway. And again, when you talk about great quarterbacks, you always talk about, Joe Montana and Tom Brady. I really believe, of course, Elway should be in that conversation.
Yeah, I don't know what Kyle did, but what Mike did, but with Kyle, the thing that I think his problem is he starts doing erratic stuff under pressure. Like, well, why did he do that? Oh,
yes.
I don't know. He just does erratic stuff under pressure.
Yes, and Iggy, first of all, he does.
This is what he does.
That's why I believe he should have an older advisory coach who would say to him, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing
if you're saying it's a war game, if this were like a war situation and this guy was really brilliant at military tactical stuff, but you put him in a position where he had to make decisions and under pressure he couldn't make good ones, he's not a leader. He's just not a general. He's very useful, but you can't have him making decisions. You have him informing someone who does. That's all I'm saying.
When he lost the Super Bowl with Atlanta, the head coach never told him, as far as we can tell, "You're screwing this up, kid."
Yep. And that's his fault.
Go back to he
That's
never
his fault.
had a break on him.
No, he didn't. So
And then that coach got fired a few seasons later.
and will never be a head coach again, most likely. The coach says, speaking of Bill, he's had quite a tumultuous start in his first 3 seasons in SF. Bill Walsh. Do you see any similarities with Kyle's first 4 seasons? It seems they both needed to find their stride. I remember, if I wasn't alive, but Bill, losing season, won the Super Bowl. And then 82 was a strike-shortened losing season.
That year doesn't matter.
Okay.
But he started out very poorly his first 2 seasons. Yeah. I would say one thing different. Bill had almost no talent on those teams. He inherited a disaster, and he built up. Now,
Kyle inherited a bad team too.
Yes, but here's what I want to say.
Sure.
He did very well in 19, but he was a disaster again in 20.
Right.
Now, you can blame the injuries, but he was the head coach.
Right.
So he doesn't get credit for doing well because
Right.
they had a crummy season. For example, Arizona had a better season than them, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so, no, you can have all the excuses you want. Once Bill found his stride, his teams were great. I don't count the strike year. He was playing with strike players. You know what I mean? I don't count that year.
Okay. Yeah. Brandon Turner says, who in your opinion has the best 49ers song of all time? Do father and son agree? The best 49ers song of all time? I've never heard a good 49ers song. Have you?
I don't need who has the best 49ers song? I'm not familiar with these songs.
Yeah, I don't know the 49ers songs. I'm sorry. None of them. Sorry. Hunter says, thoughts on Giants and Gabe Kapler.
What?
Thoughts on Giants and Gabe Kapler.
Yada, yada. They're doing very good. You know what I would say about Gabe Kapler? He doesn't have as good of a lineup as the Dodgers, and yet he competes. He's ahead of them right now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the the general manager, what he's put together there.
Farhan. Yeah.
Farhan.
Yeah. Will says, do you think we can win without Mostert? If so, trade the Ravens for 2 firsts and maybe a conditional 3rd. I tried. I don't think you can trade Mostert for 2 first-round picks, but I like the enthusiasm.
Hey, but I do think they can win without him.
Yeah, I do think they can, but I wouldn't trade him. I don't think he's worth that much, but I do think they can win without him. Yes. Raymond Martinez Jr. says, do you think Kyle believes he made a mistake in making the game easy for RG3 and wants to put Lance through tough situations to prep him better?
I don't know.
I mean,
all I know is they got RG3 hurt.
Yeah.
That didn't make it easy for him, and he could never play anymore.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Like, maybe maybe he's saying he doesn't want to run. Oh, I think what what Raymond is trying to say here is maybe Kyle's trying to protect Trey Lance and not have him be a running back. No, I think when the regular season starts, he's going to be a running back. He's going to run a lot.
Also, he didn't protect him very well.
He didn't protect him very well.
He already got him hurt.
That's right. EJ Reed says, Hasty gives me 2019 Mostert vibes. Obviously talented, but low on the depth chart early in the season. My bet is he breaks out late in the season. Agree?
Yeah. Well, I love him. I love
him. Yeah, I can see that. That's a good call. He might be one of these guys who doesn't get many attempts, but when he does is good and should be getting more. Alejandro says, why does your pops call you Iggy? We do this every week. It's funny. Because of my older brother. I have a half brother who's 12 years older than me, and he named me that when he was 13 and I was 1. It was some sound I made, and that's it. That's the whole story. It's a family name.
We call him Iggy ever since.
Yep. Just spent the weekend with him and his family up in Nevada City. It was a really nice time. Is Lance going to play at all on Sunday with his finger?
Is he going to play with his finger?
With his finger? I would hope he would play with his finger.
Hold on. Could I answer that one? I have a feeling he will be in.
Yeah.
At certain plays. And if Jimmy doesn't do well, he'll be in for the second half.
Yeah. Let's see if Trey Lance is allowed to throw a ball on the Wednesday practice. Let's see.
Well, you won't see. Wait a minute. You won't see because you're not allowed to see anymore.
No,
right?
I can be out there until they start doing their team drills and stuff. I'll see. I'll be out there for 20 minutes. I'll see if he can throw. I can see that. Yeah. Tony says Mike Holmgren was very hard on Favre, broke him, then rebuilt him. How does Kyle compare to Mike Holmgren? Does he compare at all? Well, Holmgren also coached Steve Young, did he not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He was the offensive coordinator.
Holmgren is one of the greatest quarterback developers of all time.
I would agree.
Shanahans have never done that. The Shanahans are great. They revolutionized the zone blocking scheme. They're great with the run game and play action off of that, but they've never developed. They didn't. No, they haven't done what Holmgren. A young Holmgren would be the perfect coach for Trey Lance.
I agree with that. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you who else would have been good. Dennis Green.
Absolutely. And I got one more guy. Bill
Sam
Walsh.
Reich. Who?
Bill Walsh.
He might have been able to bring it.
He might have been able to bring it. Thanks, Tony. Steven says, Lowell, do you think the current Niners roster will ever have a similar lightning in a bottle chemistry as Bill and Joe?
I don't feel that the world is limited to Bill and Joe.
Yeah.
Let's see what Trey Lance can do. And let's see if Kyle is up to doing it with him. It's interesting, Iggy. We always say, because Bill said, the quarterback is the limit of my offense. In this case, Trey Lance can be thinking the coach is the limit of my offense.
Yep. There's so much I can do, but I'm limited to doing these things. Why?
Yes. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's something I'm going to be watching for when they actually play Trey Lance and he's the quarterback. Like, how much different is this offense from the stuff that Jimmy's doing? Because it should look night and day. It should. The coach says RG3 got himself hurt. He lied to the staff and coaches and forced himself back on the field. Then he rushed his rehab. The Washington football team organization was the poster child of toxic management. Hard to blame coaches with Dan Snyder as your owner. Okay. That's all historically accurate. So
thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach. I agree with that. I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan can't develop Trey Lance. I'm just saying burden of proof's on him. He hasn't done something like this yet. This is new. I think Holmgren could do it. But I think Holmgren's probably hanging out, not working, enjoying life. All right, final thing. What's the final topic, Dad?
You were going to talk about their cornerbacks.
Yes. So we praised them earlier about how they got through camp healthy. Well, they may not have one starter week one. Their cornerback, Emmanuel Moseley. I'm not sure what his injury is yet. Shanahan didn't talk yesterday, but Moseley didn't practice yesterday. And he had a hamstring injury earlier in camp. Didn't practice yesterday, and the Niners signed Josh Norman, who has been a starting corner in the league for a long time. He's 33. I'm guessing that there's a question of whether or not Emmanuel Moseley is going to start week one. And the reason I bring this up and why it's significant is we've been talking all offseason about how corner is by far the thinnest position on the defense. And if they had to play any games without some starters, it could get dicey. I don't think Josh Norman's going to cost them the Detroit game, but we don't know. I mean, a lot of times it's a 3-week injury, a hamstring thing. So this is very significant.
It could be, and it reinforces a point that we've been really knocking, is that they've been very casual about cornerback in the throwing league.
I don't understand that. And it seems like it's one of the 4 most important positions on a team: quarterback, offensive tackle, defensive end, and corner. You need a lot of good ones. And the thing that's so hard about them is they really usually need to be young and fast, because it's the most athletically demanding position on the field. You got to be chasing around the best wide receivers of the league. So that means you kind of need to draft them every year pretty high. You should spend a first, second, or third round pick on a corner every year. And the Niners don't do that. They like to get free corners in free agency. They like to get the guys who were 28, 29, 30, 33, who used to be good or been hurt a little bit. And with Jason Verrett, it worked out. But usually it doesn't. And it's like you're kind of shopping at secondhand stores, you know?
I agree. And what they do instead is build up their defensive line all the time. I think there should be more balance in their thinking.
Absolutely, because what happens is when they face a quarterback like Kyler Murray, who's quicker than all the defensive linemen and can kind of just run around and get outside the pocket and avoid all that pressure, now the entire success of your defense on that play comes down to the guys in coverage.
Same with Russell Wilson.
Yes. So it's great to have defensive linemen. I mean, they're going to make Aaron Rodgers' life very difficult week 3. And if they ever face Tom Brady, it'll make his life difficult. But once the mobile quarterback gets away from those defensive linemen, they don't matter anymore. They don't matter. Yeah. And that's the way the league is going. That's what Trey Lance is going to be able to do, theoretically.
If they let him do it.
If they let him do it. So I don't know if there's any – I don't blame the 49ers for Emmanuel Moseley's injury. These things happen in football. He got himself hurt. But this is a big problem. And I think one of the ironies is that the Niners have really insulated themselves at quarterback. It's like, we're not going to play any games without Trey Lance or Jimmy. We're going to have one or the other. And that should be, well, you're so thin at cornerback, though. And it's not as important of a position, but it's very important. And now you need Josh Norman, who wasn't on your team in training camp, to potentially step in week 1 and play well. Now, good news is they don't have good wide receivers on Detroit. He should be okay. But now you need him.
Iggy, I blame. Now, blame is a very hard word because I don't have any emotional involvement, but I'm going to use blame because you had used it. I blame the Niners for 2 things. I blame them for being too casual about cornerback, and I blame them for not resolving their quarterback situation before the season starts. I blame them for that.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, Bill Belichick, we don't know what's going to happen. He resolved it, and he made a very daring move. He got rid of Cam Newton. He was decisive. He was everything that Kyle Shanahan wasn't.
Absolutely. And I think that there's an attitude in the Niners organization right now that they're going to win the Super Bowl. The only reason they didn't win the Super Bowl last year is because they were hurt. And the only reason they didn't beat the Chiefs is because the refs robbed them. And that they, as is, are going to win the Super Bowl. We'll see. But I think that there's a little bit of that attitude in the organization right now. We're going to win.
Well, God love them.
God love them. Will this year's defense rival 2012? It's a great defense. Also, their weakness was cornerbacks as well. The Niners, it's their thing. Maybe. This is a good defense. If Nick Bosa stays healthy, D Ford stays healthy, maybe. It's a good question.
You know who they don't have?
Who?
Defoe.
Defoe. They don't have Defoe. That's right. Dean says they have Demo, though. They have a new guy named Demo, and they have D Ford. So they have variations. Dean says, what do you guys think about the Peter King article? I haven't read the Peter King article. Did it come out just now?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what he wrote. Peter King, everything I know about him, because sometimes I think he has a daughter who lives out here, Iggy, and he sometimes is over at the Niners. Everything I know about him, he's quite a nice man, works very hard. I just don't know what article that's being referenced.
Yeah, sorry. If you want to let us know what that is, we'll answer the question. But otherwise, that's our show.
That's it.
Yeah, that's our show. This was a good one. What'd you think? How'd you?
What did I think?
Yeah,
A+.
A+. We did great.
Any show that has you on it is terrific, Iggy.
Well, it was an honor to do this on Rosh Hashanah. Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
And who's Jewish, and even if you're not, now you know a new word. So there you go. All right,
I love
Dad.
you, Iggy.
Love you too, Dad. I'll call you in a minute. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be back in 2 hours with Jack Hammer. See you then.